General Hospital spoilers reveal that in the unraveling world of Port Charles, a new wave of uncertainty and heartbreak sweeps through the community as Sasha Gilmore Corbin finds herself at the edge of a decision that will alter not only her life but also the fragile destiny of her infant daughter. Daisy. Once a woman who fought to reclaim her life after unimaginable tragedy, Sasha now walks a line between healing and surrender. And with the whispers growing louder around actress Sofia Mattson's impending exit from General Hospital, the sense of finality grows heavier with each passing day. Sasha's recent journey has been marked by moments of painful clarity and desperate resilience, from overcoming the trauma of her past to navigating the treacherous terrain of motherhood, mental health, and rekindled affections with Michael Corinthos. But even as she stood beside him, watching Daisy's baptism unfold in the sacred halls of the Quartermain estate, Sasha's gaze betrayed a woman lost in thought, in fear, in doubt. The baptism should have been a celebration, a new beginning wrapped in faith and family, but the day was marred by escalating tension, unresolved grudges, and a storm brewing quietly in Sasha's heart. The ceremony was a culmination of pressure and expectation, a symbolic crossroads where Sasha was expected to find peace. Yet all she felt was the weight of everything unresolved. And behind every loving smile she forced, every prayer she whispered, lurked the shadow of impending departure. Though her heart yearned to stay, her soul carried too many scars, and the relentless chaos of Port Charles offered no safe harbor for a woman still clawing her way back to wholeness. Sidwell's looming threat only intensified the urgency. The man who once haunted Sasha's darkest hours now lurked on the fringes of her fragile recovery. A symbol of unresolved trauma that never truly vanished. With every passing moment, Sasha feared that her presence in Port Charles wasn't just unsafe for herself, but increasingly dangerous for Daisy. The possibility of being targeted again, the thought of her daughter's suffering in the crossfire of vendettas, conspiracies, and emotional warfare, these fears compounded until they became unbearable. And though Michael, Carly, and even Jason had offered their protection, Sasha knew deep down that her demons were not so easily vanquished. They followed her in dreams, in silence, in the mirror. The tragic irony of her situation is that just when she began to glimpse the faintest outlines of joy again, through Michael's gentle care, through Daisy's innocent laughter, she was also forced to confront the irreversible damage that remained beneath her skin. A part of Sasha never truly returned after her breakdown. After the manipulations of Gladys and Montague, after the tragic loss of her son Liam. And though therapy, medication, and moments of hope have given her the strength to hold on, they have not silenced the questions. Is she truly fit to be a mother? Can she offer Daisy the stability and security she deserves? Would Michael be better equipped to raise her alone? Now, with Sofia Mattson's rumored departure looming large, the show appears to be steering Sasha toward a heartbreaking decision, one that will not only disrupt the lives of those closest to her but also redefine the emotional landscape of General Hospital. Whether she leaves under the guise of a peaceful trip to visit her adoptive parents, or vanishes into the fog of another mental health episode, the result is the same: Port Charles will lose a mother. A survivor, a woman still clawing her way back to the light. And Daisy will be left in the care of Michael and the Quartermains, sparking a whole new layer of custody tension, emotional fallout, and legal complexity. For Willow, who remains entangled in her own battle with identity and maternal rights, Sasha's exit may represent a dangerous opportunity. With Sasha gone, Willow might attempt to reassert herself in Daisy's life, especially if her rivalry with Michael continues to intensify. Carly, too, may step further into a maternal role, attempting to shield Daisy while also confronting her own guilt and grief over the Corinthos family's disintegration. Jason, ever the loyal protector, may try to trace Sasha's steps, seeking answers that may never come, haunted by yet another woman slipping away from his grasp. And what of the town? Port Charles. A place where past sins echo louder than church bells and no secret stays buried for long, will not remain silent. The media will speculate. Neighbors will whisper. Legal lines will blur. Questions will fester. Was Sasha coerced into leaving? Did she suffer another psychotic break? Or did she make a selfless decision in hopes that Daisy might have a better life away from the wreckage of Sasha's unraveling identity? The reality may be all of these things and more. Because Sasha's journey has never been simple, and her departure, if it comes, will not be wrapped in neat resolution. It will be messy, painful, unresolved. It will hurt. And that is what makes it true to the spirit of General Hospital. In a world where love is often tangled with betrayal, where recovery walks hand in hand with relapse, and where motherhood is both sacred and fragile, Sasha's arc mirrors the emotional whiplash of real life. Her story, filled with loss and longing, speaks to the part of every viewer that knows how hard it is to let go, especially when you fought so long to hold on. So as the days grow shorter and rumors become reality, we brace ourselves for a chapter that may close not with a triumphant return, but with a quiet, sorrowful fade to black. If Sasha leaves Port Charles, she will leave behind more than a child. She will leave behind echoes of redemption, shards of trauma, and a town forever changed by the imprint of a woman who was never truly at peace. And perhaps, in the silence that follows, the people who loved her most, Michael, Carly, Jason, even Willow, will find themselves asking the hardest question of all: did we do enough to help her stay? Michael's steps echoed softly through the hushed halls of the Quartermain estate as he wrestled with the emotional burden that had slowly consumed his life. The once proud corridors that had been filled with celebration, laughter, and family unity now stood as silent witnesses to a storm that had engulfed him from every direction. The custody battle for Daisy had not just begun in the courtroom, it had started long before, in whispers and worries. In sleepless nights and quiet moments where he questioned everything he thought he knew about love, responsibility, and fatherhood. Sasha's rapid unraveling had left him stunned. After Daisy's baptism was derailed by chaos and emotional revelations, a new chapter of their lives was being written with fear and uncertainty inked into every page. Sasha, once radiant and resilient, had become a shadow of herself, and despite his attempts to shield her and Daisy from further harm, the world around them refused to slow its descent into turmoil. What haunted Michael the most was the moment he realized Sasha was slipping away, not just emotionally, but physically, too. Her decision to leave Port Charles wasn't announced with a dramatic farewell or confrontation, it was the quiet resignation of a woman who had carried too many burdens for too long. He had pleaded with her, begged her to consider Daisy's needs, but Sasha had looked at him with hollow eyes and said she needed to find herself before she could be a mother again. Now, Michael stood as the only stable figure in Daisy's life, determined to protect her future at any cost. The legal papers had been drawn up, the court dates were set, and the fight for guardianship had begun, but it was a battle Michael never wanted to wage. He loved Sasha, perhaps more deeply than he had ever admitted, but love wasn't enough when Daisy's safety and emotional well-being were at stake. His fears were compounded by the growing influence of Jen Sidwell, a manipulative force whose intentions had never been anything but destructive. Sidwell's previous attempts to destabilize the Corinthos family had nearly succeeded, and Michael couldn't afford to underestimate him now. The thought that Sidwell might exploit Sasha's absence to make another move filled Michael with a cold, gnawing dread. He had already placed extra security measures around the estate, ensured Daisy was never left unattended, and coordinated with Jason to monitor any suspicious activity, but he knew from experience that no defense was ever truly impenetrable. In the quiet hours, Michael often found himself at Daisy's crib, watching her breathe, her tiny chest rising and falling with fragile innocence. She was unaware of the chaos unfolding around her, blissfully untouched by the adult world's complications. And yet, she was at the heart of it all, a symbol of love, of pain, of a family broken and searching for redemption. Michael had vowed not to let his daughter become another casualty in the war of secrets and power plays that had long defined the Corinthos legacy. But with Sasha gone and no clear timeline for her return, he had to consider the long term. Would Daisy grow up wondering why her mother left? Would she resent Michael for stepping in? These questions tormented him. He had spoken with Carly at length, seeking counsel not just as his mother but as someone who had walked similar paths. Carly, despite her usual bravado, had expressed concern that Michael might be underestimating how deep Sasha's wounds ran. She cautioned him not to villainize Sasha in court, even if her absence painted a damning portrait. Michael agreed, but he knew the legal process wouldn't care about empathy. The judge would want answers, consistency, and evidence of stability, and right now, Michael was the only parent who could offer that. The legal team had already begun compiling a timeline of Sasha's mental health episodes, hospitalizations, and missed visits. It wasn't an attack, it was a defense. A necessary, painful cataloging of a woman's dissent for the sake of protecting a child. And yet, the more Michael read those reports, the sicker he felt. He didn't want to win custody of Daisy by proving Sasha unfit. He wanted to win it because he could offer Daisy the security she deserved. Because he could love her with a full heart and keep her safe from the chaos that had taken too many others. But the road ahead was steep and filled with landmines. Public opinion was shifting. The press had caught wind of Sasha's disappearance and was already spinning narratives that painted Michael as opportunistic, a power-hungry Corinthos looking to snatch custody while Sasha was down. Articles speculated on Sasha's mental health, drug abuse, and even hinted at abandonment. Michael wanted to scream at the headlines, to demand fairness, but he knew better. The media had never been kind to his family, and they wouldn't start now. He'd have to weather the storm and let his actions speak louder than speculation. Jason had his back. Always silent but unyielding in his support. Together, they devised contingency plans, legal strategies, and even mapped out potential threats from those who might seek to destabilize Michael's case. But even Jason's presence couldn't erase the loneliness Michael felt as he navigated this battle without Sasha by his side. He thought often of their last conversation. Sasha had held Daisy, kissed her forehead, and whispered promises she may never keep. Michael wanted to believe she would come back, stronger and ready to reclaim her role as a mother. But every passing day made that hope dimmer. He watched as Daisy reached milestones, her first laugh, the way she clutched his finger with surprising strength. The sleepy sighs she made when she nuzzled into his chest, and wondered if Sasha would ever witness these moments. And if not, how he would explain her absence when Daisy began to ask. The emotional toll was immense. Willow, still reeling from her own losses, had distanced herself emotionally from Michael. Though they coexisted peacefully for the sake of Wiley and Amelia. There was a coldness between them now, a silence filled with things they couldn't say. Drew, having once offered Michael guidance, had vanished into his own turmoil. And Sonny was engulfed in legal issues of his own, leaving Michael to shoulder this alone. The weight was crushing, but Michael bore it because Daisy was worth it. She was the light in a world that had grown too dark, and he would not let that light be extinguished. The court date loomed like a thundercloud. Michael rehearsed his testimony, reviewed every document, and steeled himself for the cross-examination that would undoubtedly dig into his past, his family's criminal ties, and his own mistakes. But he was ready. He had to be. For Daisy. For the future he refused to let slip through his fingers. As the day drew near, Michael found himself staring out over the estate's grounds, thinking of Sasha, wherever she was. He sent up a silent prayer, that she was safe, that she would find her way back, and that one day, Daisy would know just how much they both loved her. Even if the world had forced them down separate paths. The war for custody wasn't just about paperwork and hearings. It was about love, sacrifice, and the unbearable weight of doing what was right when everything felt wrong. And Michael, for all his doubts and scars, would carry that burden to the end if it meant Daisy never had to feel the cracks forming beneath her feet. Because no matter what the court decided, he had already made his choice. He would fight for his daughter, through every shock, every rift, and every dark twist the world could throw at them. And in doing so, he hoped to rebuild a future out of the ruins of everything they had lost. The haunting rumor that Daisy might die has cast a long and unbearable shadow over Sasha's already fragile mental state, serving as the final, devastating blow that drives her to vanish from Port Charles without a trace. This unthinkable tragedy doesn't just rip a mother's heart in two, it unravels every shred of healing Sasha had tried to stitch together since the loss of Brando, her descent into mental health crises. and the torment of being manipulated and betrayed. If the whispers are true, and Daisy's life is indeed claimed by a cruel twist of fate, whether illness, foul play, or the fallout of Port Charles's endless storm of revenge and secrets, then Sasha's departure becomes more than grief. It becomes escape from a reality too unbearable to survive. This unconfirmed and deeply disturbing storyline has ignited a frenzy among fans and insiders alike, pointing to what could be the most emotionally explosive twist the show has delivered in years. Sasha's rumored exit is no longer just a quiet decision born from exhaustion, it is a violent emotional recoil from a world that has taken everything from her, including her second chance at motherhood. If Daisy's death is indeed the secret she carries, the silence she refuses to break, then Sasha's absence becomes a living monument to pain. Her disappearance transforms from retreat into exile, from recovery into punishment. What's more alarming is the chilling possibility that Sasha might blame herself. Her past, riddled with addiction, manipulation by Gladys, and repeated emotional breakdowns, could weigh heavily on her conscience, convincing her she was never fit to be a mother in the first place. The streets of Port Charles are no strangers to grief, but this loss, if true, would upend the town's emotional axis. Michael, who fought valiantly for Daisy's custody, could find himself shattering under the weight of unfulfilled protection. Jason, who had stood by both Sasha and Michael as a silent guardian, could be pulled into a new battle, one of justice, retribution, and perhaps even revenge, depending on the circumstances of Daisy's death. Sonny, already battling legal and personal demons, would see yet another child, his family, torn apart. His empire of loyalty and legacy crumbling further with each grave dug in the name of secrets. If Daisy's death was orchestrated, intentionally or by negligence, the fallout would be nuclear. All roads could lead back to Sidwell, who has long plotted against the Corinthos family. Some insiders suggest that Sidwell, obsessed with breaking Sonny's world from within, may have targeted Sasha and Daisy to destabilize Michael and disrupt the Quartermain stronghold over the children. Others speculate that a medical mistake at General Hospital, echoing past negligence that ended lives, may be to blame, reigniting old battles about who truly controls Port Charles's most sacred institutions. And then there are the wild theories that Nina, still bitter and manipulative, may have indirectly played a part, or that the lingering hand of Drew, who many feel is spiraling into darkness, could somehow be involved. For Sasha, the death of Daisy, regardless of cause, is the undoing of her soul. Her exit is not a dramatic announcement or a court-sanctioned disappearance, it is the quiet slipping away of a woman who no longer sees herself as worthy of redemption. The memory of Brando, the silence of her crib, the echo of a baby's laugh never to return, these are the ghosts that haunt her as she boards a plane, takes a car out of town, or simply walks into the unknown, never to look back. Her absence becomes a wound that Port Charles may never heal from, a cautionary tale of trauma unspoken, of mothers undone by fate, and of grief so profound it swallows the living whole. And yet, even in this darkness, questions remain. Is Daisy truly dead, or is this another twist in a long, spiraling mystery? Could Sasha's supposed breakdown be the result of another manipulation? Could Daisy have been taken, stolen from her mother in a plot so cruel, so cold, that it mimics death to hide a deeper conspiracy? If so, then Sasha's disappearance is not surrender but strategy, an act of desperation to uncover the truth when no one else believes her. This theory paints Sasha not as a broken woman, but as a mother on a quest, a ghost in the system working to reclaim what was taken. But until the truth is known, Port Charles mourns. A cradle stands empty in the Quartermain mansion. Michael's strength cracks behind closed doors. Carly weeps silently for a grandchild she barely got to hold. And Jason, stoic and unshaken in almost every storm, lowers his head in helpless silence. The town that has withstood decades of death and deceit stands still for one child, Daisy, and the mother who couldn't bear to say goodbye. In time, the truth may rise. But for now, all that remains is silence, and the lingering question no one dares to ask. What really happened to Daisy Gilmore Corbin? Michael had survived betrayals that would have crushed most men, Willow's abandonment, Drew's manipulations, the collapse of his marriage, and Sunny's moral decay. But nothing, not even the years of war between the Corinthos and Quartermain legacies, could have prepared him for the soul-rending loss of Daisy. Her absence wasn't merely a tragedy. It was an obliteration. She had become his reason to keep breathing through the carnage of Port Charles, a fragile light in the aftermath of endless storms. And now that light had been snuffed out, leaving behind a man hollowed by grief, hardened by rage, and unrecognizable even to himself. The funeral never came. There was no closure. No body. No clear enemy. Just a whisper of disappearance followed by a media blackout, sealed records, and sudden silence from those who claimed to love him. Sasha's departure had been abrupt, frantic. Her mental state had deteriorated following weeks of emotional instability after Daisy's baptism, and she vanished before anyone could confront her with the truth. Michael was left holding the pieces. Alone in a house that still smelled like baby powder and formula, where Daisy's toys remained untouched, her blanket folded neatly at the foot of an empty crib. The ghost of what could have been haunted every corner of his existence. His descent into obsession began in subtle ways. He started recording conversations, watching surveillance footage, checking hospital logs. He paid off orderlies and bribed security guards. His once kind, idealistic eyes took on a glassy sheen of suspicion. He no longer looked at people, he looked through them, parsing their expressions for lies, their words for betrayal. He questioned Sasha's mental breakdown. Had she left on her own, or was she silenced? Was she the victim, or the architect? His distrust spread like poison. Drew became an immediate target. Michael couldn't ignore how conveniently he had distanced himself from Sasha in the weeks prior to her breakdown. Or how quickly he moved to consolidate influence within ELQ after Daisy's disappearance. Carly, once a refuge, now became a mirror of every maternal failure he feared for Daisy. Her silence, her warnings, her pleas to let the past go only fueled his paranoia. Jason tried to intervene, but even he wasn't above suspicion. He had once faked his own death, who's to say he wasn't helping someone else disappear? Michael's pursuit of truth turned into something darker. He hired private investigators outside of Sunny's network, ones loyal only to him. He traced calls, reviewed Sasha's financial records, even investigated Sidwell's movements in the days leading up to and after the baptism. The more he uncovered, the less sense any of it made. Too many coincidences. Too many sealed files. Too many people with motives. Then came the whispers, unsourced rumors that a child matching Daisy's description had been seen with a woman outside the state. That a private plane had departed Port Charles the night Sasha left. But none of it could be verified. Each clue only fueled his desperation, until he became consumed with a single belief. Daisy was alive. And someone had taken her. Michael's need for vengeance metastasized. He began constructing a quiet war room in the basement of the Quartermain estate. Maps, timelines, surveillance photos, all pinned up like a madman's puzzle. He studied Sidwell's psychological profile. He reviewed Nina's movements, wondering if her hatred for Sasha had finally taken form. He even revisited Britt's past, wondering if secrets surrounding Rocco could be connected to Daisy's disappearance. Nothing was too far-fetched anymore. And through it all, he smiled in public. At ELQ board meetings, he was composed. At charity events, charming. To the outside world, he was a grieving father trying to stay strong. But inside, he was unraveling. One night, standing in Daisy's nursery, he collapsed. The silence was deafening. The rage too loud. He pounded the floor with his fists until they bled. He screamed into the emptiness. Into the void she had left behind. There were no words to capture the agony, only a howl, primal and broken, of a man who had lost everything that gave his life meaning. Then came the turning point. A blurry photo delivered anonymously to his office, a little girl with Sasha's eyes, standing beside a woman in a remote village across the border. The timestamp aligned too perfectly with Sasha's last known location. Michael's hands trembled. Was it real? Or another cruel hoax? He didn't care. It was a lead. And this time, he would follow it to the ends of the earth. Michael quit the corporate world. He left Wiley with Monica and gave Willow full visitation rights without protest. The war inside him was now all-consuming. He sold off assets, bought untraceable equipment, and set off into the shadows with one mission, to bring Daisy home or die trying. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that someone had staged it all. Sasha never wanted to leave. She was forced, drugged, held, and now trapped in a facility under a new name. Watching video clips of Michael unraveling while her captors whispered, "See what he becomes when he loses you? This is who he really is." In his pursuit of justice, Michael was walking straight into a trap. A psychological war crafted by someone who had studied every trauma he ever endured and used it to twist him into something new. Something dangerous. Something no longer driven by hope, but by fury. The final chapter had not yet been written. But one thing was clear, Michael Corinthos was no longer the boy raised in privilege. Nor the man who once sought peace between warring families. He was now a father haunted by absence, a son betrayed by silence, a man hardened by grief. And as he closed in on the truth, he would either save Daisy, or become a monster even Port Charles could no longer recognize.